Hey there, friends. Welcome back to another coaching session. And this time I'd like to talk with you about reading as a conversation or a dialogue with the author. Now, if you're anything like me, you may have had the experience of reading something and you can actually hear the author talking to you or hear the voice of the author speaking to you. Yes, that's because it's a living, breathing transmission. Reading is a transmission, it's a living document. With a novel, the characters, they come to life. You can hear the distinction between the characters' voices. Yes. And I think you can agree with me that we're all transmitters and receivers. Like right now, I'm transmitting and you are receiving. Now, I want to tell you about the Four Powers of Communication by Dr. J. Michael Bennett. He says the four powers are reading, writing, speaking, and can you guess the last one? Yeah, listening. And when I read that, I got it. I just got it. No one said it like this, but here's what I got. I'm reading the author's writing, and they're actually speaking into my listening. Yes. So here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to read an excerpt from this so that you can appreciate it. And I love Sir Francis Bacon, who said, avail yourself of other men's writing so you may come easily by what others have worked hard for. So, in other words, take advantage of what other people have read and learned and written down for our benefit so you may come easily by what they worked hard for. So, my attitude is one of respect, it's one of appreciation when I approach an author and their work. And I'm open in my listening because I'm reading their writing, they're speaking into my listening. So, I want to be active in that listening. So, here goes. The real issue here is not whether people should or shouldn't read 20,000 words a minute, or even whether they can or can't. It's not the issue. The real issue is much more mundane than that and much more important. It is whether the average person, now reading 250 words a minute, which is painfully slow, by the way, would not be a better reader in every way if he or she learned to read effectively at 600, 800, or 1,000 words a minute. The evidence is quite convincing that they would. A person whose rate is 250 words a minute is not only kept from reading well, but is often kept from reading at all. Let's take another look at Decline and Fall. That's a book that he referenced to earlier. At 250 words a minute, a person will take 83 hours to read it. How often does he, faced with such a task, simply decide that he hasn't gotten time for it? Rightly or wrongly, this is often his decision, for he only has two alternatives: to spend 83 hours on it or no hours. And this brings us to an important and generally neglected point. In actual fact, people do not have a single reading rate. They have or should have many rates. They should be able to read as fast or as slow as they want, or as the situation warrants. Yes. And an interesting thing about Dr. J. Michael Bennett, he was a professor emeritus at the University of Minnesota. And there was a reporter who got wind of PhotoReading when Paul Sheely first released the program, who went over to the university and said, Dr. Bennett, we've heard about this thing called PhotoReading, and we want you to check it out for us. Help us do a little investigative work. Let us know what you think. He said, all right, sure. So he met with Learning Strategies and talked to Dr. Sheely, and boy, was it a match. Let me tell you something. And it became a collaboration. Porter comes back a couple of weeks later, and he says, so what did you find? Because he was hoping to discredit the photo reading program. And Dr. Bennett said, well, I'll tell you what I found. I found that it was fantastic, amazing, and I wish I had developed the protocol myself. Yeah. So what we are doing is we're providing you a variety of tools that you can use selectively so that you can develop a variety of tools in your learning toolbox to apply as needed based on the complexity of the material, time you have available, etc., etc. Now, here's what I've done. I've selected 7 books, random books from my bookshelf, because when I was going to make this video, I knew I was going to make it, but I didn't know exactly what the content would consist of. I just knew it was going to be reading as a conversation with the author. So I said, how am I going to put this together? Selected 7 books, opened each one, and turned to a page, a little something that I'm going to share with you that is highly relevant and amazing, and I want you to enjoy it. So each author has their own voice, their own style. All right. And I want you to check this out. So here's my first selection. Love 101. To love oneself is the beginning of a lifelong romance by Peter McWilliams. Now, I love Peter McWilliams. His first book was called You Can't Afford the Luxury of a Negative Thought. It's such a good book with so much wisdom. And that book led me to his second and third books. And this is one of them. So here goes. I turned to this one here. It's called Solitary Pleasures. And again, conversation with the author. I'm reading his writing. He's speaking into my listening. So here he is. People often have pity for those who dine alone in a restaurant while reading a book. What a shame, they say. They must be so lonely. No. The one with the book is having dinner with Shakespeare, Oscar Wilde, Gore Vidal, or William F. Buckley Jr. The one observing the reader, drenched in pity, is having dinner with someone he or she met at Uncle Louis's birthday party. I like that. When we are alone, it is much easier to relate to great minds and thoughts contained in books, audio tapes, movies, and other media. It is also easier to relate to the great ideals and thoughts in our own minds. It is important to develop an appreciation for ourselves, for the pleasure of our own company. A pro with self-love should seldom give the excuse, well, I would have gone, but I couldn't find anyone to go with. Go alone. He says that. Go alone. Long walks or quiet meditations can help us clarify our goals, contemplate pathways of fulfillment. Time alone also allows for inspiration, that magical instant in which the ideal, discovery, or solution appears in the mind from seemingly nowhere. If you're busy chatting it up with another over incidentals, your moments of inspiration might get lost in the clamor. Peter McWilliams. Love it. Conversation with the author. Here's another juicy one. This is called A History of Reading by Alberto Manguel. There we go. I open to this page here. Ooh, and this is so good. History of Reading. Chapter called The Beginnings. He says, but writing is not the only invention come to life in the instant of that first incision. And he was talking about writing on tablets. One other creation took place at the same time, because the purpose of the act of writing was that the text would be rescued, that is to say, read. The incision simultaneously created a reader, a role that came into being before the actual first reader acquired a physical presence. As that first writer dreamed up a new art by making marks on a piece of clay, another art tacitly apparent, one without which the markings would have been utterly meaningless. The writer was a maker of messages, the creator of signs, but those signs and messages required a magus, one who would decipher them, recognize their meaning, give them voice. Writing required a reader. Now, I just picked these randomly. You ready for the next one? Yeah, I'm reading. They're writing. They're speaking into my listening. Reader come home. Marianne Wolf, The Reading Brain in a Digital World. I open the page to what? Calvino, who devoted his whole life to translating difficult thoughts into words, left us with the plea that language in all of its complexity not be flattened by us. The future of language is linked both to the sustained effort of writers to find those words that direct us to their hard-won thought, and to the sustained effort by readers to reciprocate by applying their best thought to what is read. Ooh. So it's on the writer to to find the right words and for us to apply our best thought to what is being read. Isn't this interesting? Isn't this good? Oh gosh, it gets better. Here's my next selection. Trances People Live, Healing Approaches in Quantum Psychology by Stephen Wolinski and Margaret Orion. I open to witnessing. Look at that, witnessing. The moment you step outside of your problem to observe it, Millicent, because this is personal, this is he talking to me. The moment you step outside of your problem to observe it, Millicent, you create a larger context for it. Observing or witnessing thus becomes a key activity of therapy. I first came across the concept of witnessing in Eastern literature, in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is described as the eternal witness. Krishna gives counsel to poor Arjuna, who represents all of us normal humans in life crises. Krishna teaches Arjuna how to interact with his states of consciousness so that they do not rule him, by developing an awareness of his true nature as witness. The entire Bhagavad Gita revolves around the concept of the eternal witness as the means of disentangling ourselves from the worldly perils. Yes, so we need to witness, not get all tangled up and, more involved, but step back and just be the witness of what's occurring, detach from it. It says indeed in chapter 13, entitled The Field and the Knower of the Field, the Yoga of Distinction, Krishna defines the field as the body and repeatedly emphasizes the need to know the knower of the field, because the body field is where experiences are experienced. So this is about us becoming aware of ourselves as the witness, the knower. Oh, honey, such a fantastic book. Are you getting this? So what you get from a book is based on your attitude, your approach, your purpose. What do you want from it? Who are you? What do you want in this moment? And that's changing all the time. The first time you pick up a book, you'll get something out of it. You pick it up again, you'll get something deeper. You may put that book on the shelf and not visit it for a long time. Come back to it and say, wow, I didn't even get that last time, but look at what I'm getting out of it this time. Here's our next selection. Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. Now, I love Brene Brown. I've watched her TED Talks. I've read her books, and she's a phenomenal woman. So I feel her. I hear her. I already know her. I relate to her. I connect to her. So I open to Daring Greatly, a tightrope walking and practicing shame resilience and reality checking. This is good. She says, over the course of a year, Millicent, I interviewed artists, writers, innovators, business leaders, clergy, community leaders about these issues and how they stayed open to the constructive, albeit difficult to hear, criticism while filtering out the mean-spirited attacks. Now, people are always attacking. Golly. Basically, I wanted to know how they maintained the courage to keep on walking in the arena. Now, she talks quite a bit about the arena, okay? And she wants to talk to people who are in the arena, not those that are in the sidelines on the seats, okay, hurling insults and trashing others. She's like, but I wanted to know from these people, how did they maintain the courage to keep on walking in the arena? She says, I'll confess I was motivated by my own struggle to learn how to keep on daring. And it's called Daring Greatly. Here's the best part. When we stop caring about what people think, we lose our capacity for connection. That's good. When we become defined by what people think, we lose our willingness to be vulnerable. Mm. If we dismiss all criticism, we lose out on an important feedback. Yes. But if we subject ourselves to the hatefulness, our spirits get crushed. It's a tightrope. Shame resilience is the balance bar, and the safety net below is the one or two people in our lives who can help us reality check the criticism and the cynicism. Golly, I love it. Conversation with the author. Just excerpts, but I want you to appreciate this and then think about this in the context of your own reading experience, whatever it is, whatever subject you're learning about, whether it's academic or personal development or some professional things that you've got to learn or medical journals, whatever it is, or just expanded reading for pleasure purposes. It's a conversation, it's a dialogue, it's a transmission. Cool. Got two more. The next one is activate your vagus nerve. And it says, unleash your body's natural ability to heal gut sensitivities, inflammation, brain fog, autoimmunity, anxiety, and depression. Now, I bought the book because I want to know what Dr. Nawaz Habib has to say on the matter. Because I've had leaky gut, inflammation, hands swollen, feet. Like, what's going on here? I want to unleash my body's natural ability to heal. Okay. I open the book to the dysfunctional microbiome. Check out what Dr. Habib has to say. He said, Millicent, one of the most likely low-grade stressors that you may not be aware of is of the bacteria living in and around you. The population of bacteria living in your gut, Millicent, and on your skin has a significant effect on us. And if that population is not optimally balanced, it can be a major stressor on your body. In chapter 3, we discuss the fact that there are approximately 100 trillion bacteria present in our large intestine alone, compared with the 40 to 60 trillion human cells that make up the body. There are even some estimates that state that there are 10 times more bacterial cells living in and on us than there are human cells in the body. Wow, interesting fact. Interestingly, there are 150 times as many genes in our microbiomes than there are in the human genome. It has been proven that the composition of our microbiomes has a direct relationship to our diet and health as we age. Our gut. Then there's a quote here. It's by Hippocrates. He says, all disease begins in the gut. Now, as we know, the vagus nerve is highly involved in signaling to and from the small and large intestines. And I'm going to leave it at that. Now, the vagus nerve is the longest nerve. It runs, all the way throughout the body. It communicates like all the way. And when it's out of whack, we're out of whack. Oh my gosh, such a good book. Love Dr. Habib and all the many things that I've learned from him. Yay! Reading's a dialogue with the author. Who are you? What do you want from your author? It's transmission. All right, last selection. This one here is The One Thing. The surprisingly simple truth behind extraordinary results. Random selection by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. I like that, Papasan. So I turned to a part here called Counterbalancing, the long and short of it. This is really good. And I hope you see the relevance inside of each one of these, perhaps to you in some way or another. I certainly can for myself. So here we are, counterbalancing. When we say we're out of balance, we're usually referring to a sense that some priorities, things that matter to us, are being underserved or unmet. The problem is that when you focus on what is truly important, something will always be underserved. No matter how hard you try, there will always be things left undone at the end of your day, week, month, year, and life. Okay. Trying to get them all done is folly. Yeah. When the things that matter most get done, you'll still be left with a sense of things being undone. A sense of imbalance. Leaving some things undone is a necessary trade off for extraordinary results. But you can't leave everything undone. And that's where counterbalancing comes in. The ideal of counterbalancing is that you never go so far you can't find your way back, or stay so long that there's nothing left waiting for you when you return. This is good, is it not? Reading some dialogue with the author. I'm in the conversation. This is so important that your very life may hang in the balance, Millicent. An 11-year study of nearly 71,000 British civil servants concluded that habitual long-term hours can be deadly. Researchers show that individuals who worked more than 11 hours a day, a 55-plus hour work week, were 67% more likely to suffer from heart disease. Counterbalancing is not only about your sense of well-being, it's essential to your being well. And then there's a little illustration here about this work-life balance, counterbalancing. A little bit more. There are two types of counterbalancing: the balancing between work and personal life, and the balancing within each. In the world of professional success, it's not about how much overtime you put in. The key ingredient is focused time over time. Focused time over time. However much time that is, focus. To achieve extraordinary results, you must choose what matters most and give it all the time it demands, like you're reading, like you're completing a program of some sort. This requires getting extremely out of balance in relationship to all other work issues, with only infrequent counterbalancing to address them. In your personal world, awareness is an essential ingredient. Awareness of your spirit, your body, awareness of your family, your friends, awareness of your personal needs. None of these can be sacrificed if you intend to have a life. You can move back and forth quickly between these and often even combine these activities around them. But you can't neglect any of them for long. Your personal life requires tight counterbalancing. What do you think about that? Hmm? Well, I'd like some feedback. I want you to share with me, what are your thoughts on the excerpts? What was shared? Anything, any aha, anything that came to mind, take a note of it, because we are becoming the witness. Witness your experience. Notice, that's a key word inside of our systems. Notice your experience. Don't judge it. Don't overanalyze it. Be too much in your head. Just notice. Witness. What does it feel like? Where am I at? How did that strike a nerve when she read that thing about the vagus nerve and the microbiomes and the bacteria? What was it like for you hearing Dr. Habib? So take this information, this approach, and apply it to yourself. And again, avail yourself of other people's writings and learnings so you may come easily by what others have worked hard for. So with that, let me say thank you for spending the time with me. See you soon.